Hello and welcome to another episode of the Ecom Ops podcast. Today on the show, Graeve. Well, he is known as Graeve, but he is all about substance. And when it comes to data, there is no fluff inside. Paul Graeve, founder and CEO of the Data Group, has spent nearly 20 years helping over 300 companies turn their data into strategic advantage. And with his upcoming book, The Data-Driven Leader, Paul is on a mission to simplify data ownership and empower decision makers at every level. Today, we are talking strategy, systems, and surprising ways servant leadership shows up in the world of tech. Let's go. Graeve, welcome to the show.
Hey, thanks for having me. It's an honor to be here. Appreciate you.
Thank you very much for being at my show, Paul. This is really great, but I need to know, who is Paul Graeve and where did Graeve come from?
Yeah, so Paul Graeve. Graeve is my last name, and it's pronounced just like the sauce. And so when you go to kindergarten and your last name is Graeve, everybody just starts calling you Graeve. So I just kind of went with it. And so it was a lot of fun, and it's a great name, and it's very memorable. And there's a lot of Pauls out there in the world, but there's not very many Graves.
Yeah, I assume that. It's similar a bit to my name, but my last name is Strappler. And there are, in German, there are very much possibilities to strengthen that name. Okay, but that's cool about the last names. I think worldwide that the last name often is used in schools or from kindergarten to be abstracted somehow in a cozy name. So that's cool, really. What led you start the Data Group? So what is about the Data Group? What is behind that? What problem do you solve? And yeah, just tell us a bit more about that.
Yeah, all of my businesses, I started my first data business developing databases out of my college apartment back in, the early 90s. So it's almost been 30 years now. I need to update my bio from 20 years to 30 years. Time's moving fast. But all my companies have been data-oriented companies, companies focused on data warehousing, analytics, empowering companies to use their data more effectively. So the Data Group, we've had a few companies over the years where we've kind of got into front end development and development of BI tools and that and whatnot. But we started the Data Group 5 years ago. We really wanted to kind of get back to our core of focusing just on the back end and staying on the back end, supporting front end development through integrations and APIs, but keeping our team and our mission focused on the data side of things, data warehouses, data integrations, APIs, all those things. So the name of our company helps us keep focused on and what our strength is.
Yeah, Nomen ist Omen. Yeah.
Yes.
You've worked with over 300 companies. What's one recurring data mistake that you nearly every business makes?
Yeah, I mean, I talk about that a lot in my book, Data-Driven Leader. I think the biggest mistake that CEOs and leaders make is they believe the lie that they hear from IT and from data heads, data people that this stuff is really complicated and they don't understand it, and therefore they should outsource the leadership of it to kind of the tech team. And what I tell CEOs is, hey, data is actually very simple. It's strings, dates, and numbers. It's incredibly simple, and you do understand it, and you need to lead it because your data is your most valuable asset. It's the whole truth and nothing but the truth, with no bias or opinion about your company and where your company actually is today. And so if you want to have a real grasp on the truth about your company, you need to have a real grasp on your data, because it is the truth about your company. And so what I really encourage CEOs to do is to quit outsourcing the leadership of their technology and their data, and to take control of the leadership by casting the vision that we are going to own and control and effectively use our data, because it is the truth about our business, and we really need to own it and control it to use it effectively.
That's a very interesting saying that you have here. I've heard this quite often in the show when it came to marketing data, when it came to marketplace data, when it came to own the customer. And what you see actually is own the data, which is a bit more abstract or a bit bigger. actually than just own the customer. But I can understand that it is very important. Where do companies not own the data? So when they come to you and you recommend them to own the data, at which point you see them not owning the data?
Yeah, I mean, today's world it's the ultimate irony, right? We're in this new AI frontier, and AI runs on data, right?
Yeah.
So you need your data to have an effective AI initiative and strategy. So I think people are realizing that their data is more important than ever. But the irony is, the flip side of that is our data is getting more disparate all the time because SaaS platforms are proliferating. And SaaS is wonderful. I love SaaS software and subscriptions, and they're so much easier than trying to build and manage on-premise systems. And they're great for startups where you can just subscribe to all these great tools. But the problem with SaaS is your data just gets more and more fragmented and scattered and distributed in the cloud. And so you have less and less ownership and control over it. So it's another thing I really try to talk to CEOs about and leaders about is as you're looking at systems, especially these SaaS systems, we tend to look at, hey, does it fit our budget? And does it have the features we want? And if it does, then we buy it. And I think there's really a third and very important question to ask is the budget and the features. And then how are we going to still own and control and extract the data that we're putting into this SaaS platform back into where we can own it and control it and effectively use it. And so that's kind of a third key component. I'm really trying to get CEOs to say, hey, look, this system's great, but we need to understand how we're going to own and control our data that's going into this system. And that's the challenge. And, it's so easy to continue to buy and subscribe to SaaS platform after SaaS platform. And all of a sudden you've got 10, 20, 30 SaaS platforms and your data is just a scattered mess. And so unless you're very intentional about saying, hey, with each platform and subscription that we add, we need a strategy and a plan to extract that data into a data warehouse that we fully own and control. And that's why we love tools like yours, like SyncSpider. They have all these pre-built connectors. So it makes it much simpler as you buy and add on these SaaS platforms to just use platforms like yours to make the connection and start to extract that data.
I really love the idea behind that. And that's so true. I mean, it doesn't matter which tool of software that you use, the data is there and you need to somehow get it elsewhere and store it elsewhere. I have seen that quite often that if you go on a SaaS subscription and you need the data elsewhere, you cannot get it back. And you need to start from scratch if you want to build something else. So this is something that we have seen quite a lot. So you are working actually at Data Group with you run on platforms like Alpha, Foxtrot, and Tango. Can you break down what these actually do for our client?
Yeah, Foxtrot is our flagship platform. We've been working on Foxtrot actually for over 20 years. It's gone through many iterations, and over the years, it's built on Node.js. It is basically a no-code API platform, so it allows us to build REST, fully secure REST, audited, compliant, paginated, searchable REST APIs over data structures in minutes. So we can literally connect to a data warehouse or a transactional database and create an API over that in a day versus months and years. So our Foxtrot platform is really valuable, helps companies spin up APIs incredibly rapidly. Alpha is our data movement platform. It's our platform very similar to SyncSpider to allow us to move massive amounts of data out of either SaaS systems or mainframes, on-premise platforms. So we work with a lot with large companies and their massive mainframes and on-premise platforms and moving that data from their on-premise systems into their cloud-based data warehouses like Snowflake. We're a Snowflake partner, and we love working with Snowflake. So Alpha is our data movement transformation platform. And then Tango is something that we invented because a lot of developers are really trying to develop apps today that need both the benefits of powerful transactional databases like PostgreSQL, along with the powerful data warehousing capabilities of Snowflake. And so Tango does a real-time synchronization between Snowflake and Postgres and allows app developers to develop where they need the transactional capabilities of Postgres, but they need the data warehousing capabilities of Snowflake And then we put Foxtrot over the top of that, and that creates a single unified API development layer for the app developer over Postgres or Snowflake. They don't even need to know or care where the data is or where it's coming from. The API takes care of all of that, and Tango takes care of the real-time synchronization between the two databases.
A nice one. And for all of them who didn't understand anything, don't worry. You can read the blog post afterwards and then search for the terms. No, everything is good. Just kidding. I mean, I got it because it's my topic and my world as well. But it's very interesting approaches. It's more for bigger companies, right? So a small company actually would not or could not afford the costs of getting something involved. Or what do you think, when does it start for a company where they should consider something like that?
Well, I think as your SaaS platforms proliferate, I mean, even your small e-commerce operation, you're going to start to put things on different platforms, Shopify, WooCommerce, Amazon. You're going to have really quickly, you're going to have an inventory management, product information management system, a finance accounting system. So even small operations, your systems tend to proliferate very rapidly. And you get to even a handful of systems, 5, 6 different systems, you already have this challenge where your data is very disparate, and it's a challenge to really see the whole vision of your company in one place. And so that's where we really start to encourage companies, hey, it's time to start looking at a data warehousing strategy and pulling all this data from these handful of systems. And the sooner you start, the easier it is. I mean, it's a lot easier to start building your data strategy and your data warehouse when you have 6 systems than it is when you have 25 systems.
Yeah.
So the sooner you start, and then it starts this mindset of that starts you to think, hey, we just added a new system. What's our strategy to get it into our data warehouse? Because we've already got that strategy in place. So the sooner you start it, the easier it is. And then you already have that mindset in place as you grow and you continue to add systems. You already have this mindset and this strategy of pulling that data into your data warehouse. So you're not going to end up in this place where you have 25 different systems and you don't have any of it integrated or aggregated into a data warehouse that you can use it effectively.
And that's the big thing, I think. If you say the word data warehouse, I think a lot of smaller companies don't even have heard about that, the term, the data warehouse. They have an ERP, they have a store or another store and a marketplace, and maybe a PIM, but no data warehouse. And I think to explain what you did is a very nice explanation about that. To bring all the data that you have, it doesn't matter which channel, into one holistic database where everything lives inside, because this is your data. This is where you work from. And when you start analyzing something, you can build relationships across those different channels that you have aggregated into one big data warehouse. It need not be productive. You need not produce something out of that. You can or you could produce something out of that. But the main thing is you own it and you can analyze it and you can put things together. And I think that's the big thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You need that holistic view. I mean, that's what the data warehouse does. It gets the data from all those disparate systems into one place where you can connect the dots, where you can see everything that's going on from finance to operations to inventory to shipping to production. You know, when you have the systems just segmented, it's very, very difficult. And that's how companies always end up in the place we all know and call spreadsheet hell, because you're exporting data from all these systems and putting it into Excel. So what you need is a data warehouse that keeps you out of spreadsheet hell. And it gives you the ability, just like you said, now I fully own and control all of my data not in an ERP, not in a platform, but in my own database that I fully own and control. And it does several things. It opens up the world of possibilities. You could put an API over that warehouse. Now you could build portals and apps and analytics, alerts. I mean, there's so many different things you can do once you fully own and control your data. But the other thing it does is it keeps you from being held hostage. You know, all of a sudden your ERP is not the best ERP for you anymore, and you need to upgrade. You need to move to a different ERP. If all your data is in that silo, you're kind of held hostage. But if you've been actively downloading that data every day into your data warehouse, now you fully own and control that data. You can get rid of that system, upload your data into your new ERP, and you're off and running. So it's really, it's such an important strategy to just fully own and control your data in a one version of the truth data warehouse for so many reasons. And that's what I'm always educating and teaching and coaching CEOs on, is just this importance of owning and controlling your data.
Yeah, and to extend that, as an integrator, we see a lot of those who want to move from A to B. And it's often that you have a history of many, many years that you want to pull out of a system and transport it to another system. And there it often happens that one of those systems has API limits that you cannot overcome. And so you have problems getting all the data, transferring the data. If you own it right away, it's more simple. You can create batches from your own data. But if you don't own the data and you need to rely on API, you need to start with the very beginning, and you reach those API limits, that can really harm a transfer from A to B. Yeah. So owning the data right from the beginning and putting it as a backup in a data warehouse is really something that I can fully sign as a good approach. Is there any super duper success story that you have from your customers that you could help with your solutions?
Yeah, we're in the process of integrating all of the data warehouse, the PIM, the ERP, logistics systems from a wholesaler here in the U.S. called Groeschel. They're about a $6 billion a year wholesaler. They do about $1 million an hour on average on their e-commerce platform. And they have over 14,000 retail stores, independent retail stores across the country. So our platforms, our Alpha platform and our Foxtrot platform, seamlessly integrate and aggregate all that data from all of their internal platforms to those over 14,000 e-commerce platforms every night and in real time as orders come in. So that is one of our biggest implementations from an e-commerce standpoint. And it's been a lot of fun. It's something we've been working on for a couple of years with Groeschel, and it's just an ongoing massive operation, and we really enjoy it. We're working with ElasticPath, which is a large e-commerce platform here in the U.S., and really have enjoyed working with them, as well as Groeschel's been a customer of ours for many, many years, and we enjoy working with them and all of their retailers across the country to make their e-commerce platforms really work smoothly and provide great service to all their customers.
Yeah, cool. Thank you so much for that story. And you decided to write the book, That Data-Driven Leader. So what sparked you the idea for writing it?
Well, I have a lot of, I'm real into leadership. I go to a lot of leadership conferences. I hear a lot of leadership talks. I read a lot of leadership books. And I hear a lot of leaders pay lip service to the idea of data and owning your data and KPIs. But I don't actually see any of them actually doing that. And I'm involved in a lot of these organizations, and I see how poorly they use their data, how they don't own and control their data, how they don't have a one version of the truth data warehouse. And I was kind of preaching this all the time. And enough of my mentors and friends said, hey, you're talking about this all the time. And, you really should just write a book about it. I never dreamed I would write a book. I just never saw myself as an author, a book writing kind of guy. But I had enough people just tell me that I should. I started looking into it. And fortunately, I found that there's people out there that will help you with this, which is amazing because it is a very difficult journey. So I hired a book writing coach, and she was awesome at keeping me accountable, keeping me writing. So that was really helpful. When you're trying to run a company and write a book at the same time, it's obviously very challenging. So it's an elephant. You just have to eat it a bite at a time. And that's what she helped me with, was just every day you write a little bit, every day you write a little bit, every day you write a little bit. And a year and a half later, you've got a book. So it's been a fun journey. Looking forward to it coming out later this year. And all of a sudden being an author, like I said, something I never thought I would do, but it's great.
It's great. And it's fun. It's, I thought about writing a book as well. And it's the same story. You cannot make a podcast and, run a company, or two companies actually, and write the book. So we will see. Maybe one time, but I will definitely be one of your readers once it's out. So don't forget to let us know.
Day.
Yeah.
Write a half hour a day. You'll get there.
Yeah. Oh gosh, that's great. How do you help non-technical leaders become confident in making such data decisions, especially with the understanding about the complexity? How do you make it user-friendly and approachable for your clients?
Yeah, well, I mean, that's a big part of the book, and what I'm always talking to CEOs about is that's a lie that they've been told by IT, that this stuff is complicated and they don't understand it. Again, data is incredibly simple. It's strings, dates, and numbers. Every CEO understands how to read a chart and a graph. They use them all the time. So this is data, and it's that simple. The numbers are the measurements, and the the strings and dates are the labels and the axes of the charts. So that's as complicated as data is. You do understand it. You need to own and control it. So what I'm always just encouraging them is to, hey, quit outsourcing the leadership of this. You need to own and control your data. It's your company's most valuable asset. So let's start, setting, what do we do as leaders? We don't need to understand everything about, you don't understand everything about operations. You don't understand everything about marketing. You don't know, does the CEO of a power company that has nuclear power plants understand how nuclear reactors work? No, he doesn't, but he still leads them. Yeah. And how you lead them is you cast the vision and you set the mission, and then you lead the team on the mission. And so it's no different with data and IT. You say the vision is we are going to own and control all of our data. It is our most valuable asset. We're no longer going to leave it scattered and out there where we can't effectively use it in the cloud. We're going to own it. That's the vision and that's the mission. So you set the vision, you set the mission, and then you lead them. We're going to own this thing in a data warehouse. What do we got to do? What's got to happen? How long is it going to take? And then you lead them on the mission and you get your data warehouse built.
Awesome. Let's assume, what should an e-commerce business do first if they feel overwhelmed by scattered data and solid systems? What should I do first?
Yeah, again, let's make it simple, right? What you don't want to do is say, let's get everybody in a conference room, and let's whiteboard a strategy, and let's talk about it, and let's draw a bunch of boxes, and that will just confuse everybody and kill all momentum, and you'll meet forever and you won't actually ever get anything done. So what you want to do is keep it real simple. You just want to identify your systems, identify the core systems where all your data is scattered amongst, identify how you can connect to those systems. So you talked earlier about APIs. If you got on-premise systems, you can make direct database connections. With cloud-based systems, you either need to depend on exports or APIs. So you need to work with those vendors, figure out how are we going to own and control our data? How are we going to get this data out of there? So that's the steps. Identify the systems, figure out how to connect and extract that data, and then just start doing it. And what I say is, start small, start extracting 10 rows, start with small little bits of data, get it into the warehouse, figure out the process of how we connect, how we extract, how we load the data, and then just start increasing the rows, increasing the amount of API calls, start adding more and more historical data as you get better at it. So, but the biggest thing is just start. Don't plan, don't strategize, don't meet, identify the systems, connect to the systems, start loading small amounts of data, and then you'll start figuring it out. And before you know it, you'll be loading all kinds of data from all kinds of systems into your data warehouse, and you'll really be on the path to owning and controlling your data.
Super recommendation. I love that, especially because I had another podcast show with data automation, and they say, but it's more about automation. It's not about data itself. It's more about automation. But it aligns a bit together because they say, if you notice that you're doing something constantly, if you're repeating something each and every day or each and every week, just take a Post-it, write down what you're doing, and make a line per every time you do it. And when you have 5 times done the same task, it's time to automate it. I think you can do something similar with Post-its and getting data into your data warehouse by writing down every single tool that you start using.
Yeah, and what I encourage, one of the tips I use as leaders to think about is, if you were to count the number of times that you say, I think, because we get in these meetings. I think. Everybody's got an opinion, and everybody says I think. And what I say is I think is what it really means is I don't have any data to support this at all. So here's my opinion. And so what we want to try to do is change that from I think to, hey, I've got this data, and this data shows that this is the problem. So we want to shift from everybody having an opinion and a thought, and I think this is the truth, to, hey, this data shows that this is the truth. So that's just one of the tips to try to change your mindset from a not data-driven leader mindset to a data-driven leader mindset. Instead of saying, I think, say, hey, what data do we have where we could really understand this problem? And once you start asking those questions, and that's the way you want to ask it, don't say, do we have any data? Because they'll probably just say no. But if you say, what data do we have? That's a more open-ended question, and it forces them to kind of go, well, I don't know, but let's go find out what data we have. And now you've kind of set your team in motion on this data-driven mission to go find the data that you do have. And you're starting this process of changing your culture into a more data-driven culture with some simple questions and thought processes.
I love those data answers. Really, I love this. Because there's a very important reason for that. I mean, I'm coming from an advertising agency back then. When I started the company 20 years ago, it was an advertising agency with a focus on e-commerce. And an agency or a digital agency, actually creative agency, is all about creativity. It's about making something look beautiful. But at the moment when you start doing marketing, especially online marketing, or when you start building a web store, when you start getting sales, everything from creativity moves into data. Yeah. It's something. It's a mixture of creativity and data analysis, and especially when it comes to growth in e-commerce, when it comes to selling more, you need to make data-driven decisions. You can make a hypothesis and say, if we make that button green instead of red, there might be more people buying. But finally, the data will say if it's the truth or not. Right. And that's also in every aspect. Creativity and data together is the key to success in this case.
Yeah, we all have our own opinions and biases, but the data is the truth. Yep. And that's what I like to say. I mean, the whole truth and nothing but the truth about your business is your data. And a lot of times we don't want to know the truth. That's the problem.
Often it's better.
Yeah. And what I tell people a lot of times, the biggest problem they're going to have is once they do download and get all of their data into a data warehouse and they take a look at it, they're probably not going to like what they find out. There's going to be a lot of truth in there that they wish they didn't know about. But the great thing is, you really do want to know about it, right? You want to know the truth. You want to know how bad it is, and you want to know where the real problems are. And it's kind of like an addict, who's got a problem. You can't fix the problem until you see it and you know it, and now we can address the issue. So until you really get your data and you can see it and you can see the problem, now we can work on fixing it.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Well, Paul, let's come to the repeating questions. Some questions that I always ask in each and every show. And the first one is, what's one lesson about business or leadership you wish you'd learned earlier in your career?
Oh, well, John Maxwell is one of my favorite leadership gurus, and love reading all his stuff. And of course, he's just always talking about loving people, caring for people. People don't care how much you know once they know how much you care. So it's really about just leading people through love, just building relationships by caring about people, adding value to people. I'm still getting better at that, but John Maxwell is such a great teacher of that servant leadership philosophy.
Super. That leads to my second question. Who has influenced you the most as a leader? Who has taught you the most? And what is the best advice you would give?
Yeah, my top three are easy. John Maxwell, Pastor Chris Hodges, who is my pastor at my church here in Birmingham, Alabama, Church of the Highlands, and then Pastor Craig Groeschel, who he's awesome. He's an amazing leader. He has the best pure leadership podcast on the internet, in my opinion. I listen to every episode. The Groeschel Leadership Podcast is amazing and a great resource if you're really just trying to learn the foundational principles of leadership through a podcast. So those are my three mentors that I go to all the time, and I listen to all the time, and I read all the time.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And there is one new thing that we do, and we ask our interview partners, what should we ask our next interview candidate? And Andrew Trampers from EVP of Marketing at Harper wants me to ask you, what's something you're facing now or have faced in the past that felt enormous at the time, but looking back turned out to be much smaller than it seemed? And what did that experience teach you about perspective?
Yeah,
Very
that's
bad
great.
one.
No, that's a great question. And one thing I always remind myself of something somebody said to me years ago, and I was concerned and worried about something. And they said, what were you concerned and worried about a year ago? And you can never remember what you were concerned and worried about a year ago.
Yeah, true.
Which tells you and shows you that, hey, this too is going to pass, and you're going to get through this. And this problem or whatever it is you're worried about today, you're not going to be worried about a year from now. And so keeping that in perspective whenever you're really burdened or weighed down by something, it's like, hey, you know what? A year from now, I probably won't even remember what this is. So that's an important perspective to always keep in mind. I think what everybody's worried about today, right, is AI. And where's AI going? What's AI doing? And I'm really concerned about the wisdom of replacing jobs. We all need jobs. We need something to do. So that's, I think, the scary thing is that this is replacing so many jobs, and what's everybody going to do for a living? So that's going to be really fascinating. I think the winners are going to be the people who figure out how to use AI to create jobs for people, because we all need, something to do. We all need jobs. So that's going to be fascinating to watch where this AI goes. But we're really enjoying leveraging it to make programming and data more efficient and effective and do things faster, which is great. And I love that part of where AI is just making things more efficient. But it's really scary to see where it's actually starting to replace jobs. It was Ronald Reagan. You may not follow, our presidents, but Ronald Reagan was one of our great leaders and presidents back in the day. And he always said famously that a recession is when your neighbor loses their job, but a depression is when you lose your job, right? And so I think it's kind of the same thing with AI. Everybody's like, hey, that's so cool, it's replacing all these jobs. Well, that's cool, but it's not so cool when it replaces your job, right? So we'll just
very interesting answer. Really love that. It's so great and it's so true, unfortunately. But we will see where it takes us in the next couple of years. I'm not sure if it's really replacing jobs, at least not now. It might change jobs. So I think one of the jobs that is maybe lost first or faster are those jobs like writers, article writers, transcriptors, or translation agencies, something like that. That will be hard, I'm pretty sure, because it's really, really good what they are doing at the moment. With translations. But maybe they shift over to prompters, making the right prompts, fine-tuning things. I'm not sure if it's really going to replace jobs so fast. It will, but it maybe changes that a bit. It's my opinion, but yeah.
Right.
And now it's your turn. What's one question you'd love to ask our next guest?
Do you own and control your data? And if not, what plan do you have in place to make that happen, to own and control your company's most valuable asset?
Wonderful question. Thanks so much. On the point. Well, guys, thanks so much for your time, Paul. Thanks for attending the show today, guys. From data platforms to leadership philosophy, Paul, as you have seen, just reminded us that simplicity scales, or that we really need to own our data, that we really need to put efforts to see how we can actually control our data and own our data. Thanks for sharing your heart, your systems, your time. Thanks again for tuning into the Ecom Ops podcast, and good luck with your upcoming book, and that you get 30 minutes a day to write another chapter.
Yeah, awesome. Already writing the second book. So thank you. It was a pleasure to be here. Appreciate you.
Thank you. Bye-bye. And that's it for this episode of the Ecom Ops podcast. If you enjoyed listening and would like us find and interview more e-commerce operations experts, please search for Ecom Ops podcast in your favorite podcast listening app and then subscribe, rate, and review. Until next time.